So welcome back to the Wedding Capture Co podcast, a podcast for wedding photographers and videographers with myself, Tom, and my lovely co-host, Chris.
Hello.
In this episode, we are talking about our pre-wedding rituals. That's really hard to say, pre-wedding rituals. And all the things that we do in the lead up to a wedding from the weeks before, right down into the hours before that we leave in our cars to go to the weddings. In this episode, we talk about the questionnaires and the calls that we have of our couples in the weeks leading up to the weddings to make sure that we have all of the information we need. And we also dive into when we fuel our cars, the clothes we wear, the snacks that we buy, and all of the rest of it, to make sure that the days roll out as seamlessly and as well as they can. So yeah, let's jump in.
Well, right now we are on holiday.
Yeah.
Probably on a cruise ship, maybe?
I think so, yeah, I think we will be.
Yeah.
We're floating somewhere in the middle of
in the Caribbean.
Western Caribbean, yeah. Not to rub it in at all, yeah,
But actually, we're sat, for you guys, we're sat at this table because we're recording a few episodes today, which we've never actually done 3 in a row, I don't think, on one day.
No, we haven't, no. And I'm hoping that this is number 2, and I'm hoping that your one that you heard last time was number 3. So hopefully we're holding our own and it'll be good. So.
It's no secret that we normally record 2 just to because we sort of release every 2 weeks, and it gives us then enough time that we don't have to do too many recording sessions. But obviously, because of missing one and then having a holiday coming up, we're having to record three in a row.
There are so many hours in the day, aren't there, that's it to kind of get this done. So yeah, we're kind of making the most of being in the same room at the same time and getting 3 out. So,
but hopefully you've enjoyed the last couple. I think the is it a good time to become a wedding videographer was quite a big episode, quite a good episode, and obviously with the editing season and the editing hacks as well, I think quite enjoying. Yeah, and we were just saying this as well, weren't we, a minute ago? I think there's, once you know something, or I feel like once you know something, you feel that everybody knows it. Yeah. So hopefully there were some stuff in there that you kind of didn't know maybe, or things that have actually made a difference in your editing piles. But it's a couple of little hacks or kind of tips that have sped things up. So yeah, you don't really know how in depth to go into in terms of what you do, and you think, everyone does it this way. Because after doing something for a particularly long period of time, you sort of assume that's the done way of
kind of that base level of knowledge that certain things that we probably do without even thinking about, for someone at the beginning of their journey could actually be an actual game changer. Yeah. So,
but this episode we've been talking about for quite a while as well, haven't we? And thinking about doing it for a while. Yeah. Which is this one
I think came up at the Character Summer Party, didn't it? Someone mentioned I think we spoke about a conversation. That would be a really good episode. So,
So our sort of pre-wedding routines. So what we do in terms of what the communication do we have with our couples before the wedding, what are we doing with our gear before the wedding and things like that, and how we approach then the days and weeks leading up to the wedding day.
I think obviously over the course of us doing the pod, we've had a bunch of kind of episodes on how we do certain parts of the day, and I think that kind of pre-wedding ritual, or the workflow that we have of physically how we get the information that we're giving in the lead up and how we manage that stuff, so that we can kind of put fail-safe methods in place so that we don't, you've got the right timesheet in front of you, you've got the right equipment that you need, you don't forget anything. That is kind of they're really good habits to get into. And again, hopefully there may be some hacks in here as well, or things that you could maybe do which hopefully make your morning of a wedding less stressful, if you're literally sort of trying to iron your shirt with one hand, pack your lunch with the second hand, and then not knowing where you're going. That hopefully would be much easier. Yeah.
I find our notes really interesting on this, because me and you have a joke about our holidays that we go on, that I'm the one who's writing a list of stuff to pack and packing it in the days leading up to the day and things like that. And yet for the wedding stuff, it feels like you have a much more set routine, whereas I'm just sporadically putting things on charge and hoping.
It's funny, I feel that I would say that I'm not a very organised person in my personal life, and I pretty much go with the flow and things just happen as they happen. Yeah. But I think in work, I think because I know that I have those tendencies to kind of just be, it'll be fine. It'll happen. So when it comes to work, I have to really I've learned to give myself that level of discipline. Yeah. And now I've built a routine for myself, which I repeat over the course of every wedding, so that element of it'll be okay just doesn't come into it. Yeah. But I do find it odd how you can be the complete opposite of that way.
For your personal and for your work life, yeah.
It is kind of fascinating. I probably said something about our characters
and
as
well.
And
it's the opposite for me. I have an itinerary of how I'm going to do a holiday day to day, and yet for work I'm just day before I just chuck stuff on charge. Oh, I've forgotten to chuck that on charge. I'll chuck some. I don't really have a set way of doing things.
But don't you think as well, some things that I kind of do come from mistakes that you've made? And I definitely remember shooting a wedding, and it was probably 10 or 11 years ago. It's in those first 2 or 3 years of shooting weddings that I got to a wedding, and then I was getting my stuff out and then realised that I didn't have any AA batteries to go in my flash.
Oh, no.
Luckily, it was a wedding I was shooting for a friend of a friend, and my friend was coming in the evening. So I literally texted her and was like, can you bring me some AA batteries for the evening by the time I leave my flash? And she did, and it was fine. So it was that. But I think ever since then, I've had that like battery fear that like... That I can't do that again.
Mine's
like,
SD cards. I turned up to a corporate shoot once without an SD card. I don't know how it happened, because that is literally the most rookie error ever. And it was a very long time ago, but luckily it was photos, and you could, on the A7 III, you could take a photo and have it connect straight, send the JPEG straight to your phone without having an SD card in the camera. So I literally just had my phone next to, like, in one hand and the camera in the other hand, and it was just sending the JPEGs to my phone, and I just edited the JPEGs.
It's amazing how you can adapt and overcome, isn't it? But you don't want those things to happen. No. Imagine that was a wedding. Yeah. So again,
you can do that with your phone hanging about.
So I guess that we've kind of broken this down, haven't we, into like a bunch of sections, because I guess it is a little bit multifaceted. Kind of the admin that we do to kind of make sure that our schedules and stuff are up, the way that we prepare our kit, and then also the way that we prepare our physical selves as well in terms of clothing and food and the rest of it. So I guess the best thing to start with, I guess, is probably admin, because that starts not the day before the wedding. That starts
only a few weeks before,
in the weeks before. Yeah. So I'll let you kind of start with how you do yours, because I always imagine that yours is more involved because there's more to talk about with video.
Yeah, potentially. So I have an email that goes out 6 weeks before, and that has the questionnaire in it, pre-wedding questionnaire, which has a lot of stuff. For example, the amount of speeches, who's doing the speeches, readings, are they gonna, this is stuff really that's specific to video, but obviously the normal timings and things in it, like the timings, are they going to read letters to each other in the morning? That's something that I encourage if people are too nervous to do their speeches. I say, look, you can do a letter in the morning, you're on your own, you're not doing it in front of everybody, but at the same time you both get to deliver a message to each other.
Do you find as well that because you've planted that seed of you could do this in the questionnaire, that people that hadn't even thought about it then go, oh, that'd be really nice, and do it? So it almost, you're curating that at the same time as well as giving them
that's what it's there for. It's the video equivalent of, I don't know, putting the sofa next to the window so the bride puts her shoes on there, basically. Do you know what I mean? You're being like, oh, you could do this, do you know? And then people sort of go, on the calls, people will go, oh, you've mentioned in the questionnaire about a letter. We actually just didn't think about this, but we're thinking about writing a card to each other now. Is this something you record? And then, bang, we've got some more like content. And sometimes it's really useful if they don't have personal vows or the speeches are a bit naff. Like, it's nice to have a little moment of them both reading out their cards. So all that stuff in the questionnaire, as well as details on the suppliers and Instagram accounts that we can tag. So it literally has who is your photographer, who is your florist, and then I go through the ones that I know or like that I normally tag, and then I say any other vendors, if so, put their Instagram.
Oh, so that's interesting. So I only added this in at the start of this wedding season, is that the one that I had an incident, and I'm going to shout him out. I remember I did a wedding last October with Harry. You know Harry? And I didn't know the couple had a videographer. They didn't tell me they had a videographer. So I rock up to the venue on the day. There's lovely Harry, who I'd never met, literally with all his kit laid out on the floor, sorting cameras out, and I come in and go, in the politest way, who the hell are you? And why are you at my wedding? Type thing. And so now I've added in directly the, do you have a videographer? And it says yes or no. Then it normally says yes, and then they put who it is. And then I just have one other complete catch-all for who are your other suppliers. Give me their Instagram handles. And some people go really in depth. I know, dead down to who made their underpants and like their knives and forks. Literally. And some people that literally just put like their DJ, their venue, which I'm going to anyway, and their hair and makeup. So it kind of leaves into interpretation then. But I like that, to almost get an idea of who am I going to see that I know on the day, or you can kind of gain a little bit more about how the day's going to go, or the vendors that are there, to kind of feel the vibe out if you've worked with them before. Yeah,
if you work at a certain venue and it's like, oh yeah, they've definitely gone for all the recommended suppliers, because you just recognise everyone on there. But it's mainly for like, Instagram collaborations and tags and things like that. And it's obviously really useful to know, well, for me, like when I normally know who the photographer is when I get the initial inquiry.
Do you have that on your initial
in the contact form?
See, I don't. So that's why I always ask for it then. Because it's not often, say, half my weddings probably have video and half don't. So at that point, a lot of times it has been mentioned, but I think after that one incident with Harry where they just hadn't mentioned it until I met him on the day, that now I always feel the need to just be like, because that's someone that I'm going to work the closest with. Obviously, if there is a videographer on the day, that's someone I'm literally going to have to stand alongside. So it's nice then to know who it is. So if I hadn't worked with them before, I could reach out or whatever in the weeks leading up to that wedding.
I find that a lot with photographers though. I'll turn up and I'll be like, oh, I didn't realise there's going to be a videographer here. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, why would you not ask a question like that? But it just doesn't cross their mind, some people. But yeah, I just try and go for as many suppliers as possible. And then that's generally most of the important parts of the pre-wedding questionnaire. And then they, in that same email that goes out 6 weeks before, they have a link to book in a call in one of our slots, and they can book in a call with us in the weeks leading up to the wedding. So that's pretty much the first, like, sets the ball rolling for the wedding. For the sort of
I'm not going to done that because mine's actually
yeah.
very similar. I have the same, so I have an automated email that goes out at 6 weeks, again the same, with the questionnaire in it, and then also say with an opportunity to book a final meeting. And again, I ask a lot of the similar questions, and to be honest, most of it I probably don't need. I don't really need to know who is speaking, like kind of are they having their own vows or anything like that.
That's the thing, video wise, it's so important to be caught up with that stuff.
Because you know obviously how much you need to kind of facilitate for that. A lot of times I kind of say those things out of politeness, just so I can get more of an understanding of the day, or it kind of gives them a chance for me to give them something to actually talk about on the call, rather than literally just skimming through a questionnaire and a schedule. And also in that final questionnaire, something that I've done this year is I've given them an opportunity to upload the schedule of timings that they get from their venue. So I think that they've normally had their final meeting with the venue at that point. So if they can upload the document that comes from the venue, I know then that I'm definitely going to be working to the same time schedule as the venue are. And also sometimes it's really good to kind of be a little bit nosy, because it can tell you on there then what their total number of guests are, how many of those are kids, because they need that for the food. It also sometimes tells me whether there's a supplier meal book, so I definitely know that I am going to get fed, even though they've asked my dietaries. Sometimes that's an awkward thing. If it lists on the bottom 2 supplier meals and you know there's you and a videographer or you and a second, I also know then that if the venue turn around and go, oh, no, it hasn't been covered, it's like, well, actually, I've got your docket here that says it has. So it's kind of little things like that, using it, but mainly for the timings. And then again, obviously go over that in the final call, and then obviously rolling through.
The food thing is something that actually is in my questionnaire. It's literally like, have you sorted food for
I have it in my questionnaire, but I have had other instances where it says, am I getting fed? They've ticked yes, and then the venue have pleaded ignorance. So if I have the actual document of timings and schedule from the venue that the couple get, it's normally marked on there.
Interestingly, something I want to add, I love experimenting with new stuff, right? And this photographer recommended to me that you put in your questionnaire about extra hours. So obviously, like, we cover up to the first dance, and then like on the contract, it's like if your first dance is more than an hour and a half delayed, I think it is, then like
you'll leave,
it'll start to charge or leave, but then obviously there's that awkward conversation of, oh, you know, you've delayed the first dance by an hour, like it's getting a bit on, and we don't really cover it. You don't really want to have that conversation. So this photographer said to me that she has in her questionnaire a list of options. If your day runs over, would you like us to approach you and ask whether you want us to stay for the extra charge?
So almost just stay and charge us, we're cool.
And approach you and ask, stay, don't approach you, but start charging you automatically, or just leave. And it's really like, I put that in my questionnaire. I don't think I would do either. Most of the time I just stay and
just to kind of gauge,
just to gauge what people would do. And like, I think a lot of it does depend on the sort of budget wedding it is. But a lot more people than I thought just start automatically charging or just leave. Which I think is nice then, because I think you know then that they're not expecting you. Because I think even though I kind of work on that sort of prep to party time schedule, I always say to couples, I tend to stay about an hour after the first dance, because I normally know that if they've got a band, then that takes in the first set. If it's a DJ, the evening food probably comes out about an hour after the first dance, the dance floor will empty, it's a good time. Or sunset. If sunset is later than that hour, I'll say my goodbyes as we walk back from sunset and I'll leave. Same.
But then I think if you have that though, I still kind of get that awkward little bit sometimes, and you go, I can't find the bride and groom. Like one's disappeared somewhere, and I always want to say bye to them at the end of the night, but there's still that little bit at the bottom of my stomach that thinks, are they going to go, oh, you're going home? Well, at least if you kind of have that little green light, so they go, no, they're happy that you've done what you've contracted to, and off you go. That would make that, I think, of that little bit anxiety just not be there.
Definitely. And I've never acted on it. Like I say, if a first dance was delayed, normally I just go, that's fine. Like, this is my job.
Especially if it's not their fault.
And during the summer, I've started, even though my package says up until first dance, during the summer, I started doing what you do, which is first dance or sunset, whatever's latest, really. So, but yeah, I mean, that's going far too detailed into the questionnaire. But I just think that was a really interesting thing that she said to do, and it surprised me how many couples are just like, why don't you just start charging us without telling us?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean, like, it's,
they're not, well, obviously, what you to capture it, and again, the opinion's so different, isn't it? But I think then obviously once I've had my final call, out of then more or less sort of courtesy and stuff, I have an automated email that goes out at 7 days before, so 1 week before the wedding. I'm so excited, you're getting married this time next week.
Before we skip that, what are you discussing on the call? And I think it's the same, probably a whole episode, but like just a summary.
Pretty much my call again is using the questionnaire, the answers from the questionnaire, to pretty much do a whistle stop tour through their day. And then, like you say, at those points going, in your ceremony, that's at this time, right? Okay. So who's walking you down the aisle? Who's, are you having your vows? And I do ask those questions. So not that I always particularly need it, but sometimes they, again, impart wisdom on you then that's maybe not on the questionnaire. Like they go, and we're thinking of doing confetti at this point, which they maybe wouldn't have elaborated. That was what the feelings they had about then. But obviously as well, sometimes if your couple booked you 18 months in advance, if I only sent the questionnaire and didn't do the call with them, I would not have seen them for 18 months. So I think a lot of it is more or less using the questionnaire as a kind of a jumping off point to kind of run through. But at the same time, there's also a little bit of catch up at the start and catch up at the end of kind of just that sort of, just refamiliarising yourself with them and what's been going on before the wedding. Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. I think a lot of... Do you have any important people like talks? Because I know that some photographers send out like some sort of question, like not sort of questionnaire, like a document, and they can upload photos of their important people and things like that.
No, I don't know.
Do you promise anything to do you promise to capture like a shot of every important guest?
Don't know. That's in my contract as well. That it says obviously that I will do my utmost best to capture what I deem the story of the day, but there are no guarantees that there will be photos of every single person. I think if you're going to a wedding of 100 people, short of literally doing almost a receiving line style photo booth to get a shot of everybody, I know that I do at most weddings, I try and do an all guests photo, so I feel that encompasses that, where I know a lot of photographers don't, so I kind of feel that ticks that. But no, and I think that's something as well.
They were there.
There's kind of some evidence of all of your guests being there. But for the most part, no, I don't kind of guarantee that.
I feel like most of the pre-wedding call for us, like, it's like catching up again. I think is a big thing. Is like you say, you haven't spoken to them in a while, and it's also that whole like experience. Which I keep thinking about is like, if you get onto a call with a couple, or you say like, oh, we need to have this call, you're giving up your time to have another call with them, even though they filled out the questionnaire. And people will say at the end of the call, oh, thanks so much for your time in doing this, because it's really nice that you've given up your evening. But I feel
that I need it as much as they do. Like sometimes, as much as I do, like I do genuinely get on with most of my couples, just by nature, some people are a lot more needed than others are. Like some of my couples we're always DMing backwards and forwards, or there's stuff on the WhatsApp chat that we have. Oh, what do you think about? And they really want to keep you involved with the planning, where some couples just aren't like that. They'll book you and they'll give you everything that you need in email or questionnaire or whatever, but there's not much other levels of conversation.
Back and forth there.
Or particularly if my couples aren't on social media, I don't really kind of get that view. I've not been following them for the past year to see where they've been on holiday or what's been happening. So kind of, I feel that I need that last call to kind of remind myself in my own mind who they are, remind myself of that chat that we had when they booked.
Definitely.
Or go, what's been up to? Has there been any drama? Has there been anything I think I need to know going into the wedding? Or kind of feel that you are really invested in wanting to understand kind of them and their dynamic at a base level before you go into the day.
For me, it's about setting expectations. So like, there are certain things that obviously the couple will just never know unless I say something. And like the big sort of pain points are obviously for video are the ceremony and the speeches, right? And multiple locations and things like that. So the call for me is all about like, if your ceremony is 1 p.m, and you're getting your address at 1 p.m, I won't be there. I'll be at the ceremony. So,
I think that's vital for you as well.
Knowing
that your call hopefully comes after the venue's one, because they've tried to impart, they've kind of gone, don't worry, you've not got to be ready till 12:30. And then you're going, well, no, that actually needs to be 12 at the latest. You're that kind of last point of contact, aren't you? Or that's your last chance to speak up type thing.
And often they'll say, oh, but the makeup artist said, or the photographer said, we don't have to get our dress till half an hour before. And I was like, if you leave it to then, it's going to be even later than that. So I set that expectation early of, I'll tell the couple half an hour. I'll say, at the half an hour point before the ceremony, I'm going to the ceremony and I'll miss everything from. So if you want reactions, whatever, then I'll miss everything from there. Realistically, it's not half an hour. It never happens, does it?
Yeah.
So, but I'll tell them half an hour. So that when it comes to it, I'm covered basically.
Yeah.
Because literally like 2 weeks ago that happened, where shot the bride getting in a dress, whatever. It's 5 minutes to the ceremony. Ran down to the ceremony. I'm on my own. Shot like 3 tripods, 3 cameras, mic'd up, 2 readings. I was doing all of that, and the coordinator come up and was like, "They're doing the father of the bride reveal. Do you like?" She wants you to come and shoot it. And I was like, does she want the ceremony or does she want the father of the bride reveal? And she went up there, came back and was like, the bride insists. And I was getting like all flustered and like, I don't like panic on a wedding day, but I just get confused. Like, how do you expect me to be here and here at the same time?
If you really kind of hammer in that expectation, and also that time in an informal call on an evening where they're sat on their sofa with a glass of wine, is so much better than you telling her, when she needs, you need to be ready in 10 minutes, otherwise you ain't getting it. At that point, it's too late, isn't it? Really.
In the end, the bridesmaid came out and was like, "Don't worry, like the photographer's got it covered. You make sure you're set up for the ceremony." Because I think someone had said to her like, or she'd remembered that what I'd said about like, I need this time. And don't get me wrong, like I could have done a lesser setup for the ceremony or whatever, but I think generally it's just more important to get those moments.
It leaves you then in a very vulnerable position, doesn't it? If they come back and go, why is there only these 2 angles of the ceremony, or we would like this, and you go, well, you can't start playing blame game, can you, after the wedding?
Setting expectations for that. And then moments like before, if you have speeches before dinner, that's a big pain point, because generally couple shoot happens right as everyone's going in for dinner. So am I setting up for speeches or am I doing the couple shoot?
Yeah.
So I'm saying to the couple, once you get announced in, the first person, whoever's doing the talking, needs to give me a couple of minutes to put the cameras on the tripods and get going. I'll normally have the tripods already ready, everyone mic'd up, but I'll be filming as they walk in. And in the venue, normally walk straight up to the dad, don't they? And give them the mic and go, right, we're good to go now. And I say to the couple on the day and before on this call, like, make sure you give me a few minutes, because if you don't, you're not getting like the whole.
Or even sometimes I feel that like it's that kind of chance, isn't it? Of like, I'm sure we've definitely spoken about this in the speeches and ceremony episode. Is like, just have a look and just make sure, like, for most moments I'm going to be there. Yeah. But in those real big moments, can you please just take a look round and just kind of go, make sure that I am there? Especially when I've had that with speeches kind of in between dinners, people just jump up and talk. Yeah. And then the moment carries them along, and then you go, well, where were you? It's like, well, I wasn't supposed to be there at that point.
And for photo, you can kind of cover that up. For video, you can't. But I mean, look, it's mainly to cover myself. Like, there are, for speeches before dinner, I'll have a wide camera rolling anyway, so that if they happen to start without me, there's something there that I can start with. But it's just being like, if you want the best quality out of me, this is what we should do.
And I think we spent a long time on this, but I think as they say, is they're definitely kind of the best laid plans, or the more that you can do in that planning and expectation setting in those weeks leading up to the wedding. Yeah. Because I think a lot of times with people's wedding planning as well, so they book all the suppliers at the start of it and then kind of drift through the months leading up to their wedding, getting dresses, going on stag do's, doing those bits. But a lot of times they kind of lose sight of all those timings and stuff, and then they're kind of immersed back in it at those final weeks as they kind of pull it all together going into the day. Yeah. And the more kind of that you can see that you're interested or want to help them with that, I think a lot of couples don't see it as a hindrance, and they see it as a help, as like, you are making this really easy for us because you are laying out so plainly the timings that we need, and they will be guided by you in order, if they want to get the best of what you're going to
That's
can
the
give
thing.
them.
They don't know. It's not like me demanding something from them. It's being like, if you want to get this, then I recommend doing this and stuff like that. So it's,
and I always try and finish those calls by kind of really kind of light-hearted note, and again offering to kind of be that nice person. Say, well, look, if you're at a hotel in the morning, you wake up and you realise that you've forgot hair grips or you need this or something, like text me in the morning, don't send somebody out. I'm quite happy to stop on the way in and pick up stuff for you, and kind of almost play yourself to be that kind of nice person. You're setting that precedent that you are going to be a help to them on the day as well as their photographer. And I actually had a bride message me the other week and like really cheekily, she's like, can you get me a coffee on the way in? So I went for a Starbucks drive-through and I turned up a bridal prep with a Starbucks, and then that was
fair play.
I was the hero of the day.
Goes a long way,
that's it.
And
again, it cost me what, £3 for a coffee that she to walk in, because they were at a venue where they were like at someone's house and they didn't have, like, she bought in Starbucks and they didn't have it. So
nice.
And it's those things, like, but to have that kind of talk, and I always try like to have the call sometimes at least a month before, but in sometimes realistically in height of season it can even be the week before or 2 weeks before.
So the night before, you've got a few notes on that.
Yeah, so obviously I always have that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have a 7-day to go email that always goes out. It's more like any last minute changes or anything you think I need to know. But more or less, again, you're just kind of waving in that you're still there. And then again, if I always say to my couples on the call, particularly if it's not an all-in-one venue type job where I'm going to be going to say a hotel first and then, you know, say a venue or into a church in the venue. I've had so many problems where I've got to hotels in the morning and there's been a slew of people trying to check out and I'm at the back of that line going, I have no clue what room my bride's in or, you know, kind of them to know that I'm here. So I was normally say to them, look, you've got my number. When you check in the night before, can you just drop me a text to let me know you've got to the hotel safely, what room number you're in, and do that. So I know then that in the morning I can literally just hammer a text when I'm in the car park, say, look, just pulled up, I'll be coming up to you soon. And I can normally get myself into a hotel, up in the lift and find their room much quicker than the 15 minutes I'll be standing at reception
100%.
for them, then the front desk to make a call up to the room that they don't answer because they're too busy playing music or having their head on or whatever. I just find that really eliminates the stress, and just having that little bit of kind of rapport with them the night before really makes a long way, that when you arrive on the day you kind of feel that you're in as a friend straight away. Yeah,
I do the same thing, and I think that's a cracking bit of advice, because, not story time again, my first paid wedding was at the Marriott in Bournemouth, and I turned up and I was like, oh yeah, I'm here to film this wedding or whatever, and they were like, yeah, we can't tell you what room she's staying in. I was like, why? It's data protection. I was like, but I'm meant to be filming it, getting ready, and they would not tell me. And they're like, oh, we'll call up to her, and then they didn't get a response. Like, well, she's not answering. I was like, right. So obviously I'm calling her phone.
Yeah.
She's not answering because she's bride. Like, it turns out that morning they'd moved her to another room, and the room that the receptionist was calling wasn't even her room in the first place. So I was sat there. This is my first paid wedding, bear in mind, for probably an hour at the reception desk, just sat waiting. And in the end, I saw someone walk past in a suit and was like, are you here for the wedding? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, can you just like go and find out where this bride is staying, because I don't know, and end up having to like beg someone basically to just go and like, which
is just stress that you don't need as well. At that point your anxiety's through the roof, isn't it?
But how would you know at that point to ask for a room number? Like, it's your first wedding, like, it's and
I think as well it's also, but once you kind of get into sort of you're not days before the wedding, you're hours before the wedding, just to kind of move that. They're not sat on their laptops, are they, once they're off to the hotel? But they've probably got their phone in their hand because it's 2024. For you to just drop them a message and be like, hey girl, like, where are you, like, have a lovely evening, I'll be there at this time in the morning. So you're reaffirming what time you're going to rock up in the morning, like, you know, have a wonderful evening, I'll see you then. And I know straight away that I'm getting in, I'm going to room 222 or whatever, and it just means that I can just sail in the morning and do that, and that really does help.
All of my questionnaire is copied into an A4 bit of paper. So obviously when you get Student Ninja questionnaire, like, it comes into a PDF if you download it and whatever, but I sort of transfer it over to this sheet of paper, just like literally A4 sheet, and it's like a little table, so I've got all the different places for everything to go, all the important things. I then open that on my phone and screenshot that one sheet, so that one photo on my phone tells the whole story of everything I need to capture, all the speeches, all the important things. It's just on one screenshot, one photo on my phone.
So
that's my sort of day before.
I think that's quite handy having a photo. And I've even known that I've photographers that have had that and then saved it as the lock screen on their phone. So you haven't got to unlock your phone. You just press the side button.
I couldn't do that because I'd never change it. I'd have like a wedding from like 2 months ago on my lock screen or something. I'd forget.
I'm not ready for that level of commitment. But I always say that I was the same. Get that PDF, copy the timings off of the sheet from the venue normally, copy my group list off of my questionnaire, copy my contact numbers off, and I put it all in a note. Then I can build that on my laptop, and then obviously it automatically beams it to my phone. So then if I get to the day and either Studio Ninja's down, there's no signal or whatever, I know that note is on my phone. And it's got the postcode that I need to put into my sat nav in the morning. It's got, say, the contact numbers for the bride and groom and all of that. And it all lives in that note.
Imagine for a second that Student Ninja just went, and all of your calendar things got taken away. All of your couples, like, how would you even know unless you've made a backup? Because I don't make a backup anymore.
The only thing I do is I must admit I've left my email notifications on, so I have just a Studio Ninja folder in my Gmail, and anytime I get the email to go like, oh, Dave and Sue have completed their contract, I just drag it in. So I would have to go back through that, because that would obviously have an email copy then of it all, but it would be a hell of a job. But I think it shows you, doesn't it, that, then we have a whole episode on CRM, Studio Ninja, but how much we do rely on them. But I think it's those things that, especially when you do like weddings that are in fields where there is no signal or there's no Wi-Fi, and also I think just me doing my bit for the planet as well, kind of keep bothering to make sure I've got ink and then making a list and printing it out and it living in my pocket. I just kind of keep getting it out and unfolding it. And during group lists, I find I find it really messy. Where just to have an iPhone in my top pocket and just pull it out and look at it, I just find that a lot more kind of easier. 100%. And then just delete and start again at the next wedding.
Tick bits off, yeah. I think also pre-wedding admin wise is liaison with second shooter for me. Is that we've been using a lot of different second shooters recently because Kate's not been doing as much for me. So that's become now a big part of the communication. Often they don't get involved in the pre-wedding call. So they're not necessarily going to know the vibe or like really anything about the couple. When you think about it, they just know what date it is and the venue they're going to, right? But
also it's making sure that they know that they're reminded that they're still booked for that day, where they need to be and at what time, especially if they're going to, say, groom prep and you're going to bride. It's having that bit of kind of solid knowledge. Is
like, they find this really important, or it's a black tie wedding and they want everyone to wear a black tie. You need to know all of this stuff if you're a second shooter. So yes, the liaison with it and contact with the second shooter and knowing exactly where they're going to be. Are they going to be designated to groom prep? Are they going to be on candidates or coming with you on the couple shoot and stuff like that?
Yeah, or when they get to the venue, do they need to come and check in with you first to get cards or whatever?
Or just crack on.
Do you want to crack on with this? Or it's going to say setting that whole plan so that when they turn up to the day, they're as kind of clued into to where that they need to be as you are. And I guess and some venues are different as well. Like I've had some venues in the past that want to check in with you. There's certain local venues that I always get a kind of automated email from going, you have an upcoming wedding here, or and kind of send an email to them. Or if I've worked sometimes, obviously being Portsmouth based, if you work on any of the Navy sites, you have to make sure you provide your car information and your ID up front so that you actually get clearance to get onto the site, because it's obviously government protected area and stuff like that. So it's all of those things in the lead up as well, isn't it? It's making sure that when you get to the day, you are literally there to do your job and not worry about last minute problems.
There's a venue I've been to twice this year where they have a code on the gate, and if you they send you the code like a week before or whatever. And the first time I went, obviously I read the email through and got the code and everything. The second time I completely forgot to read the email.
Did the code change?
To the gate and I was like, oh, what's the code? It did change. But all that kind of stuff is obviously pretty important as well. And drone things as well.
If you
all the admin on the drone. Do you need permissions? Like, have you got insurance? I used to do it daily, so the day before the wedding, I used to buy the insurance for that day. Now I don't bother because it's just too much hassle, so I just do it monthly or yearly or whatever. So but all that kind of stuff you need to be thinking about before.
I think that's the kind. And also, most of this stuff that we are going to say is pretty repeatable. So it's the idea is once you find your way into kind of a groove that suits you, it's just a kind of making that consistent, isn't it, across everything that you do. So in the end, it does become second nature. That I know that I kind of say I found my way in, and that's it now. Just for 35 times this year, I'm just doing that kind of rinse and repeat. So that again, all of my kind of brain space is just taken up with being creative on the day, not worrying about have I got enough battery left for this or that sort of stuff.
Moving on to kit then, is obviously we both have the same sort of mentality with our kit, and that we both leave it in one bag. I have literally the 35 litre bag that literally fits all of my wedding gear in, and that stays in there throughout the year and never comes out, basically. I know you see kind of people on Instagram, or people in general I know that have kind of like a gear cabinet, and all their bodies stay with the body caps on and not lenses kind of racked up, and they go and like, oh, I'm packing for this, or they're packing for a holiday and go, one camera, two cameras, 35. Well, I just know that would be a waste of my time to keep unpacking and packing a bag, especially when my kit is quite limited, but also the same for pretty much every wedding. It's those 3 cameras, 3 lenses, a flash, whatever. So it's easier just to kind of say, pack your bag kind of at the start of the year, or rather than have the gear cabinet in the first place, just make sure everything lives in the bag. And I always try and make sure that I'm really good in that, is that if I take the camera out the bag to do a job at home or to change a battery or to do a card, as soon as I'm done with it, it goes back in the bag in its slot, rather than live on my desk to do this, so that then I don't have to really check my bag really too much, rather than a little check in the morning. And you know what goes in what slot, so like you can literally open it, be like, all the slots are filled, that means I've got all my gear, close it again.
And again, even down to kind of bigger kind of stuff, which is not really a pre-wedding ritual, but like all of my lenses are labelled on the body cap, on the back caps, so that I know then that I've got what lenses are in where, so you know that you've got those focal lengths.
On the back caps, you say?
So the backs,
the
backs that twist on, I've just got a label that print on the edge that says 35.
Mine will get mixed up on that. I've got Tamron ones on Sony's and all kinds.
Don't let me look in your camera back. That's it, I'll have kittens. It's things like that. And again, for someone who lives my life kind of as carefree, are you one of those people that used to take a CD out of a CD thing and then put it back in the box of a different CD because that was the one you're about to play next.
No, I wouldn't do that.
See, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
don't get me started on that. But yeah, the same with lenses. Like if I have some Tamron lenses and some native lenses, but I have to make sure that my native lenses have the grey Sony backs on them and the black Tamron ones go on the Tamron lenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a few backup bits that don't make it in the bag all the time. So I've got a few audio bits which I don't always need. I went on a bit of an audio buying spree and ended up buying Rode Wireless Pros, and they basically stay in a drawer unless I've got like 7 speakers.
Yeah, because I guess there is obviously there's no point if you got a fairly quiet wedding where you only got a couple of speakers, or then another day when you've got 5 bridesmaids that all want to speak. Yeah, you'd be carrying a lot of or charging a lot of stuff, I guess, that maybe is not needed. But for me, most of the time, it's, and again, I'm sure we're going to talk batteries in a minute. That I know when I said that I got my nice new PGY Tech bag that has the little pocket for batteries where you can slide the red to green. You must laugh. I was like, I use 10 batteries in a day. Where I probably only change battery once in each camera over the course of a day. So that little packet of 3 spares
is great for me.
Yeah. And again, I make sure then that once those batteries come out of that to be charged, I flick the thing back up so they go back in. So I always know that I've got 2 charge batteries in my camera and charge ones in there. So it's okay. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. Things like drone as well, that doesn't get added all the time, so that stays out. But all of the essentials, if you know you can turn up to a wedding with everything in that bag and be absolutely fine, I think that's the way to do it, especially during the summer when like it could be 2 or 3 days between each wedding. Why the next day are you wasting time unpacking it all, put it into
I have a bag and a box, and the bag is the stuff which I need for every wedding. Like I could not leave, and I can probably do 85% of my weddings with just the bag. And then I have a little Yeti box that lives in my car which has my LED light in it, so if I'm in a barn and it's going to particularly be dark, I can't bounce flash, I'll use that for the evening, but it lives in the box. I have a 70 to 200 which I only ever need if I'm in a really long church and get shoved at the back. So for the most time I don't like to use it, but that lives in the box.
I can't imagine you using a 70
and then I have a spare flash as well in case the flash that I have in my bag breaks. But that box barely leaves my car. I would only ever walk back to the box. I don't need to lug that around with me all day. I'd only ever need the light in an evening so I could wander over and get it. Or if something breaks, it's probably not that urgent that I need it in the bag, but I could just go and get it at some point. So I kind of think that's it's that balance of still carrying minimal enough gear on the day, but making sure that I've got that stuff in kind of near enough.
You've got backups and things.
Like the spare camera and the spare lenses stay in the bag, because if I have a camera go down, I need that now. But the chances are I'll get to a church and find out I'm going to be shoved at the back with sort of at least 10 minutes notice that I could walk out to the car park.
I think that's the difference though, isn't it? Is I have all that stuff in my main gear. Do you know what I mean? So you know what I'm like. I pack the kitchen sink, right? That's why I've got the big bag and everything. It's because I've got every focal length I could possibly need. Whereas you're like, I'll just take the ones lengths. That and so do I. But I'm 35 and 50 pretty much, and 75, 35, 50 and 75 all day. But I'm still taking my 24 to 70, 35 to 150, all of that. It's because I might need it. And I do use them all the time for ceremony and speeches.
So you use them all,
but I wouldn't even, other than ceremony and speeches, I wouldn't use any of that.
Well, I don't think I've used my 70 to 200 in the last 2 years at weddings.
I couldn't imagine.
But there's still that one time where you'd rock up to the cathedral and they go, you are at the back. And I would know, even on an 85 and on crop mode, it would still be a pretty wide photo. I would need that 70 to 200. So, but again, the size of it would take up in my bag for that, like literally 2% of weddings I need it. It's just not worth it.
No, that makes sense then, that way. But another way we differ, so you're charging your stuff the night before?
Yes.
Okay.
So if I come home from a wedding, most of the time, I've seen the summer, I'm always shooting sort of week over week. So if my batteries are empty, chances are I'll put new ones in at the wedding, and then I'll still go finish the day with more than half a battery. So I always try and charge the night before, really. I think because I never have more than a charger's worth of batteries at any one time. Like I have a cube that can charge say 4 Sony batteries, and then my AA charger for my flash, which charges the batteries that I need. I think for me that is my routine, that I know the night before a wedding I can go up to bed, literally detour into my office, stick it all on charge, and then go to bed.
I suppose it's crazy to think actually that's all that you need, isn't it?
That's all I need. And most of the time it's not even that.
Sometimes
I could probably get through a Friday and a Saturday on the same set of flash batteries. I wouldn't need to charge them. But then I think, and this is what I've said in my notes, is that the reason I do that is even if I do have back-to-back weddings, then I would be in my office backing up that wedding. So then before I go to bed that night, I take it out the bag, onto the charger, and go to bed.
Yeah.
So then when I get up the next morning, I still do the same thing where it comes out the charger, goes back into the bag. At that point, I'll double check, like I think you said in your name, you double check that the wedding that you've got backed up is backed up, and then format the cards before I leave. Because I've done that before. That's a learn from a mistake. Where you've got to a wedding, start shooting,
realise you haven't formatted, and you're like, oh,
and then I'm 100 frames in on a card, and I've got to start swapping cards and stuff like that. So I always like to put. I use 128 gig cards now. I put them in the camera, wipe them, and I know that I can get through then pretty much a whole wedding without changing card.
Yeah.
Because I'm shooting backups, obviously I'm shooting dual in the camera. I don't really need to worry about splitting myself over multiple cards for safety. Yeah. And stuff like that, yeah.
So I'm charging normally the day before because I don't know why actually. I think it comes down to two things. It comes down to like something would go wrong overnight and I'd forget to charge something overnight. But if I'm putting my stuff on charge the morning of the day before, so that hopefully by the evening that's done and I can be like, okay, everything goes in the bag in the evening. Partly because there's that, what if something doesn't charge or I've not plugged something in properly and in the morning I'm waking up and it's wrong. Partly it's because I've only got chargers that fit 8 batteries, so I do have to do a swap in the middle. But then also there's that, like, me and Kate, like when Kate does weddings with me, like she'll rock up in the morning ready to pack the car, not knowing what I've charged and what I've not. So it's much easier if she just rocks up and everything's already in the bag ready to go. I think
that's probably in this is that my system works perfectly for me because the only person that touches my kit or uses my kit is me. And the same with you with the volume of kit. If you've obviously got Kate shooting with you, your bag has to include like cameras and lenses and equipment for her, as well as it's not like a second coming in with their own equipment, it's your equipment. And again, she's probably going to use in turn that many batteries of her own, or then you're kind of sharing that trust where I know if I've put that on charge, I know it's charged. And it obviously works well in the fact that I am literally an island, which I guess would create its problems if I couldn't get to it, but I know my systems.
To be a photographer and have like 2 lots of batteries to charge, I've literally,
I only own 6
if
batteries.
I can think off the top of my head, I've got 11 Sony batteries, 8 AA's for the Tascams. I've got 4 DJIs to charge, a drone, a top camera microphone, the lights, the Sony NPF batteries that power the lights, and a power bank that powers my other light. And that's all the stuff
again,
I have to
remember to put in charge. I only charge them probably twice a year. Because I use that light, that little. That I reckon I'll probably get away with. I'll probably use it 5-6 times a year. So I only charge the batteries probably once, twice in season.
It's crazy. Just the amount of stuff we have to put on charge. And like, that's me trying to cut it down. But, you know, I'm like, I just, I like to have it all. But at the same time, that's why I do it the morning of the day before, just so that I know.
But I think also as we get down this kind of last bit now, when it comes to actually what we do on the physical morning of a wedding, is that you obviously have to have a little bit more to do in the morning sometimes. So that's probably why that you need everything to charge the day before. But I tend to say before I go to bed, my ritual tends to be stick everything on charge. I've already checked in the afternoon how long it's going to take me to get to the venue the next morning. Made sure there's no roadworks, road closures, etc. But I always then look at that night, just go, I've put it in my map now. What does it say? I know it's going to be less than what it is in the morning. So if my venue is 38 minutes in the morning, I'll make sure that I leave with a clear hour. So add on that kind of traffic. Where I think if you're getting up having to do more in the morning or stop at shops, get fuel or that sort of stuff, or you want to get to the venue before your start time.
Don't need to get fuel anymore. That's a good thing.
That's it, the joys of an electric car now. That's it, that's something you have to charge though. You have to make sure that the car's charged as well.
Yes. So, that is a thing. But it's just like putting your phone on charge now. You just plug it in before you go to bed. But you're right. So I don't know whether, maybe I'm scarred from that. So one of the first year I did weddings, I had a wedding somewhere along the M25. And this is when I lived. Was I staying in Kent or I'm not sure. Anyway, it was somewhere like West London somewhere, and I remember leaving an hour earlier than I should have to make sure I got to the venue. And there was a crash in the M25, and I missed the whole of prep. And I remember calling the bride and being like, I'm literally going to miss this entire prep. And luckily, by some stroke of luck, she was like, that's good. I didn't really want you here anyway. It's just included in your package, isn't it? And luckily, that was great. But now, so I'm always rocking up to a wedding half an hour, 45 minutes before and sitting in the car, partially because I'm there and partially because, as you know, I like to have a bit of lunch or breakfast in the car before I go, like, start the wedding. So it's become a ritual for me now to go to Tesco or whatever and get some snacks for the day. You know, I'm already packing in my call bag, like, you know, a grenade bar, a couple of cans, Lucozade Sport, that kind of thing, some water. But just getting something like a meal deal for lunch or whatever, just to scoff before I rock up to the ceremony venue or whatever it is. That's always become a routine now, and I don't think I could rock up to a wedding now without going to Tesco first. And I think
this is the whole point of this episode, isn't it? Is that there's no right or wrong to a degree. A lot of it is what do we do as our rituals, where, like I said in mine, I make sure that as well that I have on that day before, if I know I need to fill up with petrol, I'll do it the day before, so that I can get in my car that morning and drive to the wedding. I don't have to stop at the shop. I don't have to stop for petrol or whatever. I make sure in that day before that I probably know what I'm going to wear and make sure it is one clean out, you know, ironed, not creased or whatever. So in the morning I can literally roll out of bed, walk my dog, eat breakfast, dress, pack, go.
Yeah.
So that's kind of thing where, and I think also it's maybe changes that I don't need to be at a wedding 3 hours before the ceremony, but that's what I always say to my clients. I'll roughly be there about then. So I kind of think that I've built my wiggle room into that. So if I was kind of 10 minutes late, I'm still not going to miss anything that important. That's only really the time that I try to get to my bride and probably spend the first 20 minutes just chatting anyway to people, kind of warming yourself to being there. But yeah, I know I'm terrible for eating and drinking on the wedding day. I get awfully dehydrated because I get so engrossed in what I'm doing that I forget to drink. But yeah, I do. I kind of eat breakfast at home, then leave.
I don't know if it's the headspace. I need a bit of time to wake up. And so doing all of that, like going to Tesco and then getting and having some food in the car. These days, like, I'll sit in the car for half an hour before and like watch Netflix in the car.
Yeah, but that's what you need to ready yourself for the day.
Yeah, just like sit. And also like those 3 hours are quite important as well. So if I'm early and I've got nothing else to do, I'll sometimes get out the car and start getting some drone shots at the venue before anyone drags me out, you know? Because you know, as soon as you get in the venue, the coordinator, if it's a new venue, the coordinator wants to show you around. If it's a venue you've worked at before, you want to get into a conversation with them. Sometimes I'll go in the car park and just run to a quiet corner so no one sees me and just film the drone stuff. So like that's done and I've silently got some stuff that I need, if you know what I mean. So all of that sort of is built into my morning routine of getting there early.
So and that takes time, doesn't it? Obviously to do all that stuff. So it means then that if you were also trying to get up and, you know, trying to pack and sort out stuff on the morning of a wedding, that means you're going to get out of bed even earlier, which then makes it an even longer day for you. As it is. So okay, that kind of, it does kind of flip backwards and forwards. So that way is, but I kind of said that like in my notes as well, make sure my clothes are out, my car's fueled. Again, if it's a summer wedding, I make sure that my cool backpacks for my cool bag are in the freezer before I go to bed. Nothing worse than going to open your cool bag and finding the lukewarm packs already still in the bottom and you can't keep it.
What a feeling.
That means that then you can't you're not going to have cold drinks or cold snacks to live in your car. And that stays there. And even silly things down to, I know in the morning that I literally just want to scoop those batteries out the wall, chuck them in my bag and leave, that I will fill my water bottle the night before as well. So I've got my water bottle strapped to my camera bag, it's done. So I don't have to worry. And that's kind of, as much as I can do the night before, so that it means, and again, I think selfishly as well, like, you know, obviously like we have Max, who's been pretty quiet today, but I always like to take him for a walk with my wife if I can in the morning before I leave for a wedding, because I kind of feel like I'm spending enough of my Saturday away from them and my family that if even we can just grab half an hour to kind of go for a walk together, at least feel like I've seen her at that in kind of some level of that day
that's good.
Before I have to drive to my wedding. It's not always possible if they're too far away or it's stuff like that, but most of the time,
at least you're not waking up like I've got loads to do. You go walk the dog, I'm gonna
and that's it. And then we'd feel that we never saw each other until then the Sunday morning and stuff like that, because most of the time when I get in, because I want to back up and preview that night, she's either asleep or in the pajamas on the sofa and I don't want to stop. I literally walk hi, eat, and then I'm straight to my office. So I can at least feel we get that little bit of time in the morning, which you kind of rationalise it however you like, don't you?
In reality, I could probably pack the car the night before as well and have even less to do in the morning. So
but again, I think it's how you build those rituals though, isn't it?
It is,
and once you've got a system that works for you,
you don't think about it.
You don't really think of anything else. So I think that kind of hopefully covers most of all the things that we do, from kind of the admin leading in and then just the kind of the fun things that we do in the morning. And I like to think, I'd love to hear what other people do. I'm sure there's some people that have like wild rituals that, you know, have to kind of constantly check in weather or traffic, or there's certain things that probably everyone's scarred from bad experiences that has led to a certain kind of compulsive way of checking things before they go.
Like, do you check Waze, Apple Maps and Google to make sure you're going to the right place? Do you have to have 3 words, like location as the entrance to the
feel like
to the
Apple Maps
venue.
got better, but there was a while where there were a couple of venues that used to take you the wrong
I think
way
it's naff
to
Apple
places
Maps.
and stuff like that. So I do think that kind of making sure that I always now ask for at least postcodes rather than like venue names or just road names and stuff.
Yeah.
Or the other one, which I got really caught out with, which having contact numbers on my note was vital, is that I had a bride that got ready at an Airbnb once. There wasn't a road name and number. It was just like a house name. It was called like The Grange and then this.
House
and I was
names are the
driving
worst.
up and down this like country, tiny private road with all these houses that had no numbers and just names. And it turned out in the end I rung them and were like, where are you? It turns out that this house had built another house behind that house, and that was the house they were stayed in. So you couldn't see it until you're on their drive. And all those things, like say, when you're thinking, I should have been here 10 minutes ago, they're going to be waiting for me and stuff like that. But the fact that you could literally just make a phone call and go, where are you? Because I've got the number. I'm not trying to pull over, bring up Studio Ninja, look through a questionnaire, trying to find a number.
Or just cover those bits in the call. Like if I see it as an Airbnb, I'll always look it up, and if it's a bit sketchy, I'll ask in the call, like, what's going on with that then? Like,
or Street View. I find Street View's my friend as well. When I'm building that plan, if it's somewhere that I've not been, sometimes I will just drop a pin on Street View and look around. So then on the day I've got that visual prompt of, okay, well there's the yellow sign. I know it's the next right after that. Can I see it from the road? And you're looking for those visual cues, aren't you? Like say, I want my morning to get from my house or from my bed to get all my stuff and get to that venue
simple as possible,
as simple as I can.
I had a call very recently for a venue that was asked about the parking, and it was like, oh yeah, there's no parking at this venue. It's like, what? It's like, yeah, well, there's about 4 slots where like the florist can rock up and empty from or whatever, but you have to drive there, empty all your stuff, and then drive to the nearest train station and park at the train station.
That's crazy.
And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, because I was like, is the train station car park all right? Is it a nice train station? They were like, yeah, it's a nice like area. I was like, okay, good, because like my car's going to be ages away. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
with literally a lot of stuff you need in it as well. And to get that stuff,
some of the time,
and particularly I find that like if you're working in cities, like I live in Portsmouth. If I've got a Portsmouth wedding and Pompey are at home, the travel for that is next level. Or let's say if it's a church, the amount of times when my car's been parked on a verge on a country road to a church. So it's that sort of stuff, isn't it? Which I would kind of then, again, which is a perfect thing for that pre-wedding call.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty kind of one of the most crucial parts of it, is getting that information from your couple then, so you're not ringing them the night before the wedding going, so what's the deal with the parking at your wedding? It's those things, isn't it? So
set expectations, reduce anxiety and stress for yourself, and just make it a smoother experience, isn't it?
Exactly
really?
that. Just make yourself the most foolproof, idiot-proof like plan that is repeatable for probably the thing that you can roll out every time as much as you can to eliminate any.
And we all do it in different ways. That's the main thing as well. So,
that's it. And I think that sometimes is knowing your character and knowing how you thrive best. If you're not an early riser, don't leave everything to the morning of the wedding, because if you wake up late, then you got no time to do it. You're going to be late to the wedding. Where if you're a night owl and you're quite happy to be up till 2 a.m. the night before a wedding doing all this stuff, then do it then, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with how you are as a person. It's just making a facility to suit it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Cool.
That's a good one. I like that.
That's good. Let's round out there. So, I hope that's helped. Obviously, let us know what your crazy morning routines or pre-wedding routines are.
I find it's a really fascinating subject to see how other people do it.
Until then, thanks for listening.
And we'll see you in the next one.